So today we are going to do this interesting, very interesting actually story, The Ant and the Grasshopper. Okay. So the story is based on a fable. You know what is a fable? Beta, Tyasa, do you know what is a fable?
Yes, yes.
What is it?
It's like a folk art, which is like a uh, story which is made for children, which have moral lessons at the end.
Exactly, which has a moral lesson in that. Okay. So you must have actually heard the story, The Ant and the Grasshopper. Okay. And the moral of the story actually is that the ant is a very hardworking insect and grasshopper actually doesn't work at all. No. So when the winters come, actually ants, they work whole summer. Okay, all along the summer they are working tediously. But what about the grasshoppers? They are only enjoying themselves. Okay. So when the winters come, what is the problem? The ant has plenty to eat, but the grasshopper, they die without food. Okay. So actually the fable says that if you are a hard working guy, if you work very hard in your life, then you are going to achieve everything. Okay. The story is to tell the people that if you are lazy and if you don't work hard, you are not going to get anything in your life. But this is not what it is happening in this story. This story is absolutely opposite to what the fable says. Okay. I mean, it doesn't give you a very good message, but something strange happens which actually will make you laugh. Okay. Against the fable. The story, the ending is against the fable, but that doesn't mean that you should also not work hard. Okay. Yes, sir. It should not give you a wrong sense of moral. Okay. Understood? Hello?
Yes,
Are you there?
yes, I understood. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm there.
So why your mic is off? Video is off. I can understand. Mic should be on all the time. Okay. So the narrator is actually narrating the story, and he's saying that when I was a very small boy, I was made to learn by heart certain of the fables of La Fontaine, and the moral of each was carefully explained to me, as it actually happens with all of us. You know, when we are small, our parents, they actually tell us a lot of fables, and they make sure that we understand that. Okay, they want to give us the right sense of knowledge, and they want that all those knowledge actually gets in our character building. You know, we can inherit all the good qualities and which we can build our characters on them. Okay, so all the moral science of the fable is actually very well explained to us. Similar thing happened with the writer also. Okay, among those I learned was the ant and the grasshopper. So one of the fables which he was taught was the ant and the grasshopper, which is actually devised to bring home to the young the useful lesson that an imperfect world industry is rewarded and giddiness is punished. Okay. So world industry here basically means the people who are hardworking. Okay. And giddiness basically means the people who are lazy enough not to work or who avoid work. Okay. So they are saying that people who work hard are rewarded, and the people who only avoid work, they are punished. Okay. So in this admirable fable, I apologize for telling something which everyone is politely but inexactly supposed to know. I mean, everybody knows, everybody has heard about this, fable, that and the ant spends a laborious summer gathering its winter store. That is, the ant, they work whole summer to get their stores. Basically, they want the supply of the food to be complete before the winters come in. While the grasshopper, they sits on a blade of grass singing to the sun. I mean, these are ideal person. They don't do anything in their life. Okay, there are a lot of students who actually don't study before the exam. Like, there are a lot of students now who study all the year around. Anna. And there are few students who only study on the eve of their exam. Okay, so what kind of student you are, Tiasa? You want to study one day before the exam, or you are like the ones who study every day?
I study like a little bit everything every day.
So you are like an ant. Anna? Very good. But there are a lot of grasshoppers around, right? There are a lot of students who study only one day before the exam, na? And they come and tell you, you know what happened yesterday? I woke up whole night, isn't it? Have you heard this kind of talks from a friend of yours that she was studying the whole night before the exam?
No,
No. So all of your friends are laborious. They all work every day.
Yeah.
Chalo, good. So while the grasshopper sits on a blade of grass, singing to the sun, winter comes and the ant is comfortably provided for. Okay. Because the ant has worked so hard the whole summer, now she can relax and enjoy the winters. But the grasshopper has an empty larder. Okay, he goes to the ant and begs for a little food. Okay, it is basically a cupboard where foods are stored, but the cupboard where food are stored is empty for the grasshoppers because he has worked nothing, he has done nothing in the summer, no store, nothing. Okay, so he has to go to the ant and beg for some food. Then the ant gives him her a classic answer. What does the ant say? What are you doing in the summertime? Okay, the ant says to the grasshopper, being a little rude, that what were you doing? You were wasting your time now. Saving your presence, I sang all day, all night. So the grasshopper says that he was actually busy singing. Okay, he was doing nothing. You sang, na? So why then go and dance? So you sang whole winters, whole summer. Now when the winters have come, go and dance. So basically here the ant is being rude to the grasshopper and she says that I am not going to help you because you have not done your work when it was supposed to be done. Now you are the one who is going to suffer. Now I do not ascribe to it to the perversity on my part, but rather to the inconsequence of my childhood, which is deficient in moral sense, that I could never quite reconcile myself to the lesson. So basically, what the writer is telling here is that perhaps my education in the childhood was not up to the mark. So I actually don't agree with the ant. And actually, I am sympathizing with the grasshopper. Okay. So actually, the writer is supporting the grasshopper and not the ant. But Yasa, who do you support, the grasshopper or the ant?
The ant.
You support the ant? Okay, that is good. But the writer doesn't do it. Okay, the writer actually is sympathizing with the grasshopper. Okay, he must also be a lazy child. Anyways, my sympathies were with the grasshopper, and for some time I never saw an ant without putting my foot on it. So what he used to do after hearing the story, he got so angry against the ants that whenever he saw any ant, he used to step on them and kill them. Okay, so he actually was a supporter of the grasshopper. Basically, means that he wants to enjoy and be lazy about his work. And whenever in the childhood he used to see the ants, he used to trample them. Okay, so in this summary, and as I've discovered earlier, entire human fashion, I sought to express my disapproval of prudence and common sense. Okay. So in this story, there you will find a very funny ending, okay, to the fable, which we are told that something very dramatic and drastic happens. Okay. Something which is actually not supposed to happen. Okay. So we should not get inspired by it, but it is just a story and the humorous ending at the end. Okay. So I could not help thinking of this fable when the other day I saw George Ramsay lunching by himself in a restaurant. Okay. Now, one of the character of the story is George. Okay. Now, George is a good man, good boy. Okay. And he has a brother, which we are just going to be introduced to, is Tom. Okay. And Tom is a basically like a grasshopper. Tom is a grasshopper of the story, while George is the ant of the story. Okay. So if you really want not to get confused, you can also write it down here in a bracket, you can write it down that George is the end of the story. Okay. And very soon we are going to get introduced to Tom also, who is basically the grasshopper of the story. Understood, Tiasha?
Yes.
So our great writer actually goes to a restaurant one day and he finds George Ramsay having lunch by himself. Okay. So I never saw anyone wear an expression of such deep gloom. Okay. You know what is a gloom?
Yes.
What do you mean by gloom?
It was very sad.
Sad. Yes, very good. Gloom basically means sad. Okay. He was staring into space. I mean, he was looking at nothing. He looked as though the burden of the whole world sat on his shoulders. Okay. Okay. I was sorry
Yes.
for him. Where are we? I just lost it. I was sorry for him. I suspected at once that this unfortunate brother had been causing trouble again. I went up to him and held out my hand. How are you? I asked. Now, the writer actually knows both the brothers. and he knows what kind of character is George and what kind of person is Tom. So when the writer saw George little disappointed, dejected, in a melancholy mood, so he understood that definitely Tom is the reason for all this. Okay. So he went to George, okay, and he actually shook hand with him and he said, "How are you?" I asked. So the George replied, "I am definitely not in a hilarious spirit. That is, I am not very happy." So the writer himself asked, "Is it Tom again?" Because the writer knows both the brothers. So he's asking, "Is it Tom again who is the reason for all this trouble?" He sighed, "Yes, it's Tom again. Of course, it's Tom. Who else?" "Why don't you chuck him?" What do you mean the word chuck here?
I think
Hmm?
I don't know. I think maybe like throw him away or like don't help him.
Exactly. So why don't you throw him out of your life? Okay. You have done everything in the world for him. You must know by now that he is quite hopeless. Okay. So he says, "You know your brother? He is absolutely good for nothing. So why are you keeping a relation with him? Just let him go. Let him be." Okay. So Josh says, "I suppose every family has a black sheep." You know this proverb? Understands the proverb? Yeah, sir.
Yes,
That
yes.
every family have somebody who is not that good. Okay. Who's a bad guy in the family. Okay. Tom had been a sore trial for 20 years. He had begun life decently enough. He went into business, married, and had 2 children. The Ramsays were perfectly respectable people, and there were every reason to suppose that Ramsay would have a useful and honorable career. Okay, so he's saying everything was not that murky at the start. Okay, Tom actually grew up to be a very good boy. He got married, he got settled. He had a, what do you say, kind of a regular job and everything. But things all of a sudden changed with him. But one day, without warning, he announced that he didn't like work and that he wasn't suited for marriage. All of a sudden, something happened to him and he wanted to change the way he lives. He wanted to enjoy himself. He would listen to no expostulations. What do you mean by the word expostulations?
Postulations means arguments.
Yes,
He
he
made
will listen.
arguments to disagree with the idea.
Exactly. So he would listen to nobody, no arguments, nothing. He left his wife and his office. He had a little money and he spent 2 happy years in the
Oh,
various capitals of Europe. So basically, he went in his merry way and he just wanted to enjoy himself, want to spend money, take no responsibilities. So he became this kind of a guy. Rumors of his doings reached his relation from time to time, and they were profoundly shocked. Okay. Uh, what do you mean by profoundly? Basically means deeply shocked. Okay. So when the relatives came to know that what kind of life is actually Tom leading, so they were all very shocked because their family didn't have such kind of people. It was a respectable family and it was not expected from any of the brothers to behave so ridiculously as he was doing. He certainly had a very good time. They shook their heads and asked what would happen when this money is spent. Everybody asks this the same question. This is the question which happens with everybody, that what will you do once the money is gone? What will you do if you don't study? If you don't make your care, if you don't make your career, what is going to happen? So the parents are all the time worried about this very, very simple question and very important question. What will happen if you don't have money? Okay. So everybody thought that Tom, the way he was spending money, one day will come when he will become a pauper, when there will be no money for him to spend, and he is actually going to lead a very, what do you say, a beggarish life, a life of a beggar. And everybody actually thought it's going to happen. They soon found out he borrowed. Now they found out that he has another ugly habit in, and that is borrowing. He was charming and unscrupulous. Basically, he had no morals. Okay, unscrupulous basically means he had no morals. Okay, he could lie under the table. He could lie to anybody. He could make all those kind of stories. He has no character. He can just lie, simply lie. Okay, so he could actually make fool of everybody by his innocence. Okay, by acting to be innocent. I have never met anybody to whom it was more difficult to refuse a loan. That basically means, you understand this line? Can you explain it to me? What is the meaning of this line? I never met
the
anybody to whom it was more difficult to refuse a loan.
narrator is trying to conclude that generally when people ask loans, we refuse to give the loan. But
Hmm.
since Tom was such a charming and an presentable human being, people couldn't refuse the loans. People would give him easily.
He was very articulate, very smart in making up stories. Okay. So it was very difficult to say no to him. Okay. Plus, he was a handsome, charming guy. So it was very difficult to refuse. So he was making merry. He was fooling around. He was making fool of everybody. Okay. Getting money from here or there, from anywhere he wanted. And he was leading a very charming and interesting life. He made a steady income from his friends and he made friends easy. But he always said that money you spend on necessities was boring. The money was amusing to spend when the money you spent on luxuries. Now, this is a very, very different idealistics of life. Okay. So he says that if you spend money of necessity on necessity, that is absolutely stupid to do. We should spend money on luxuries. Okay. For this, he depended on his brother George. He did not waste his charm on him. George was a serious man and insensible to such enticements. Okay. So now Tom actually knew George, and George was a no stupidity kind of a man, no nonsense kind of man. So he would he wouldn't try to make stories with George. He would go to him and tell him that, listen, George, I want to change myself. I want to have a new beginning, new start. And he used to convince him in that way that I am going to become a good boy. Okay, I'm going to mend my ways, and I'm going to return to this what do you say, the pattern of the good people. So that is the only way he could extract money from George. Okay. So once or twice he fell to Tom's promises of amendments and gave him considerable sums in order to make him, he might make a fresh start. So like a good brother, good elder brother, he always gave him a chance. He thought that maybe perhaps he will, like, one of these days he's going to just amend his ways and he's going to come back on track. On these, Tom bought a motor car and some very nice jewelry. Okay. So when he received money from George, he actually didn't start any business or didn't try to settle down. He actually bought a motor car and some very nice jewelry. Okay. But when circumstances forced George to realize that his brother would never settle down, and he washed his hands of it. Okay. So ultimately, what he did, he said, okay, enough. You have made enough fool of me. Now I'm not going to get trapped by your silly ideas, and I'm not going to give you any money. Tom, without a qualm, began to blackmail him. Okay. Now, Tom had other ways of extracting money. And now he started without money. He actually, convincing means not having a second thought. Okay. He started blackmailing his brother. He started insulting him. How he started insulting him? It was not very nice for a respectable lawyer to find his brother shaking cocktails behind the bar of his favorite restaurant, or to see him waiting on a box seat of a taxi outside his club. So he actually, what Tom did, he used to go and work in places where his brother used to come, and then people would compare. Now, one brother is actually doing such fine thing in life, enjoying his life in the restaurant, but the other brother is working there and doing a kind of degradable kind of a job. So he would actually blackmail him in the way that he started doing petty jobs. Okay, that too in front of his brother. Okay, Tom said that to serve in a bar or to drive a taxi was perfectly a decent occupation. But if George could oblige him with a couple of £100, he don't mind for the honor of the family giving it up. Have you understood this part, this paragraph? Yes, sir?
Yes.
How did he
Yes.
get the money this time around?
This time he told that I want to be a taxi driver,
No,
and like that.
he actually started driving a taxi. I mean, he actually
Yeah.
became a person who's going to load luggages on the taxi, and he started working in a bar. Okay, he was serving cocktails. He was actually working like a waiter there. Okay, so
Yeah. So, uh, so he told that if George could give him a couple of £100, so that he can start his occupation, he wouldn't mind for the honor of the family to like diminish.
because if one of your brother is doing a very honorable job and you are doing some petty jobs in front of your brother, it doesn't look good, na? When the people come around and say, "Oh, see, one of the brother is so rich, other person is a beggar." So the people will make up their own stories and they will criticize you for that. So it's actually not honorable. So for his own
Yeah.
sake, for the sake of himself and the sake of the family, he gave him another few $100, which he again obviously he wasted it again. Okay. So once Tom nearly went to prison. Oh my God. Now what did he do? George was terribly upset. He went into the whole discreditable creditable affair, Really, Tom had gone too far. He had been wild, thoughtless, and selfish, but he had never done before anything dishonest. But the George, private George meant illegal. Okay. So George actually knew that my brother can do anything, but he won't do anything illegal. Okay. He won't rob, he won't cheat a person, forgery. That thing he actually thought his brother cannot do. So, but he did something which actually took him to a prison. And and if he were prosecuted, he would assuredly be convicted. Now, prosecuted here means basically if the matter comes to the court, okay, if the person who has been robbed, he goes and files a complaint, and if the prosecution starts, then definitely the court is going to convict him and going to punish him. So, if you want to help your brother, you have to negotiate outside the court. Before the matter comes in front of the law, you have to go and negotiate it there. Okay. But you cannot allow your only brother to go to the jail. Okay. The man Tom had cheated, a man called Cronshaw, was vindictive. Vindictive means very angry. He wanted to take revenge. He was determined to take the matter into court. He said Tom was a scoundrel and should be punished. It cost George an infinite deed of trouble and £500 to settle the affair. Okay. So now instead of 100 or 200 pounds, he had to pay £500 to save his brother from going to the jail. Okay. I have never seen him in such a rage as when he heard that Tom and Cronshaw had gone off together to Monte Carlo the moment they cashed the check. Now, what happened? Can you tell me here, Tiasa, what happened?
Yes.
Yeah,
First
tell
of
it.
all, Tom had made a plan that he told George that the man Cronshaw,
Hmm.
uh, he Tom had cheated the man Cronshaw. He took a lot of money from him, and to settle that matter, because George cannot allow his brother to go to the jail, he uh, sold £500 to settle the affair. But later it was seen that Tom and Cronshaw both had cheated George, and with that money they went for a vacation to Monte Carlo.
They were allies, na? They were friends. Okay, hand in glove.
Yeah.
Okay, so they actually plotted this. Okay, so they again cheated their brother and they went on their merry to Monte Carlo to enjoy themselves. Okay, now this is very, I mean, very disheartening. Okay, for a brother who actually does so much for his little young one, and he just keeps on cheating on him. Okay, for 20 years, Tom raced and gambled, philandered with the prettiest girls, danced, ate in the most expensive restaurants, and dressed beautifully. Okay, so he had a what is a gallant life. He always looked as if he had just stepped out of a bandbox. Bandbox here basically means absolutely well dressed. Okay, absolutely well dressed for an occasion. Though he was 46, you would never take him for more than 35. He looked so posh, okay, so handsome, so up to date, okay, so well dressed, groomed, okay. So he actually looked much younger than his age. He was most amusing companion, and though you know he was perfectly worthless, you could not but enjoy his society. Now, this is one admirable quality of Tom, that although he was not you can call him names, you can call him anything dishonest or anything, but he was a very good guy as a like to spend time with. Okay, so he was an amusing companion. Okay, so it's very good if you could spend some time with him. Okay, he had high spirits, an unfailing gaiety, an incredible charm. Okay, I have never grasped the contribution he regularly levied on me for the necessities of my existence. Now, this Tom also cheated his friends, okay? Like this friend of, what do you say, George, okay? I mean, the writer actually knew Tom also, so sometimes, not sometimes, many a time, Tom has also extracted money from the writer, okay? But the writer doesn't mind because giving him here and there a little bit of money, he could easily lend him because he was such a amusing companion. Okay, so the writer also liked his what do you say when they were together. He liked his what do you say when they were actually spending together, the time spent together. He also liked. So he used to give lot of money, not lot of money, but little bit of money to Tom too. Okay, so I never lent him £50 without feeling that I was in his debt. Okay, so he used to extract money and he used to say, okay, he can no problem take it. It's okay. Okay, for fun's sake, £50 is nothing. Chalo, enjoy. Now, Tom Ramsey knew everyone, and everyone knew Tom Ramsey. Tom Ramsey was a dude. Everybody knew him. Okay. You could not approve of him, but you could not help liking him. There is something in him which everybody liked. Okay. Poor George, only a year older than his scapegrace brother. You know what is the meaning of the word scapegrace?
Young.
No, scapegrace basically means naughty. Okay, naughty brother. Now, poor George, he looked 60. They both were like only 1 year apart, but yet one brother was looking like 60 years old and the other was looking like 35. Okay. He had never taken more than fortnight's holiday in a year for a quarter of a century. And he was such a hard-working guy. He used to work hard, hard, hard. Sometimes I'm worried about myself. Yeah, I'm working too hard. What will happen of me? I will also look like 60 very quickly, you know. But life is not helping me. Yeah, sir. Do you think I should take off and enjoy a bit?
I don't know.
You don't know. That was a good answer. Okay. He was in his office every morning at 9:30 and never left it till 6, working every day. Okay. He was an honest guy, industrious and worthy. He had a good wife to whom he had never been unfaithful, even in thought, and 4 daughters to whom he was the best of fathers. He made a point of saving a third of his income, and his plan was to retire at 55 to a little house in the country where he proposed to cultivate his garden and play golf. His life was blameless. He was glad that he was growing old because Tom was growing old too. Okay. Now, this guy, George had spent his life thinking that if you work hard, life is going to pay you very well. And if you don't work hard, you're going to hell. Okay. So he had this thing in mind. So he used to dedicatedly work and he used to wait to age gracefully. Okay. He rubbed his hand and said, it was all very well when Tom was young and good looking, but he's only a year younger than I am. In 4 years, he will be 50. He won't find life so easy then. I shall have 30,000 pounds by the time I am 50. For 25 years, I have said that Tom would end in a gutter, and we shall see how he likes that. We shall see if it really pays the best way to work or to be idle. Okay. So now, George has a theory of life that if you work hard, and everybody says so, even the fable says so, that if you really work hard in your life, the life is going to reward you at the end. Okay. So everybody should need to work hard and do like the right thing the right way every time. Okay. So according to that theory, that one day Tom is going to end in a gutter. Okay. And George is going to have a very fruitful and very enjoyable old age. Okay. Now they want to check it, whether the fable is correct or not, whether the saying is right or not. Okay. Poor George, I sympathize with him. I wonder now, as I sat down beside him, what infamous thing Tom had done. George was evidently very much upset. Okay. Now the end of the story comes, and in the end of the story, we see that George is very upset now. Okay. So the writer thinks that something really bad has been done by Tom. Now the question is, what wrong has he done? Do you know what happened now? He asked me. You know what happened now? What did Tom do? I was prepared for the worst. The writer said, I know something very terrible he must have done. I wondered if Tom had got into the hands of the police at last. George could hardly bring himself to speak. So the writer thought that maybe perhaps this time around, the police actually has his custody and he's in jail. You are not going to deny that all my life I have been hardworking, decent, respectable, and straightforward. After a life of industry basically means hardworking, and thrift means savings, I can look forward to retiring on a small income in a gilt-edged securities, a security which pay you very high dividends. I have always done my duty in the state of life in which it was pleased Providence to place me. Providence means fortune, okay, to place me. True, he said, yes, you're right, you did everything. Okay, you were hardworking, you were decent, you did everything which a man should do, which we are taught to do. You have done everything which books teaches us, parents teaches us, society teaches us, everybody teaches us. So you were absolutely right in what you did. And you can't deny that Dom has been idle, worthless, dissolute, and dishonorable rogue. If there were any justice, he had been in the workhouse. Workhouse basically means a place where the old poor people go when they cannot find anything for themselves. Okay. So according to George, it was Tom who should be damned, isn't it? Isn't it, Yasa?
Yes.
Okay. So Tom, because he did work in his entire life, he should be damned for it. and George should have a very good life. Okay. The writer said, true. Yeah, that's true. That is exactly what the fable says. George grew red in the face. A few weeks ago, he became engaged to a woman old enough to be his mother. Now, what did Tom did? Tom married a very rich old woman. And now she has died and left him everything she had. And all the money has gone to Tom. £500,000, a yacht, a house in London, and a house in country. Understood what happened? The person who had
Yes.
worked so hard in his life, he had only 35,000, 25, how much money he said? 35,000, I guess. Now, okay, $35,000 with him. And now this person who has done nothing in his life has got £500,000, a yacht, that is a boat, take a, what do you say, luxurious boat, a house in London, and a house in the countryside. George Ramsay beat his clenched fist on the table. Look, it's not fair, I tell you, it's not fair. Damn it, it's not fair. I could not help it. I burst into a shout of laughter as I looked George's wrathful face. Wrathful means disgusted, angry. I rolled in my chair. I very nearly fell on the floor. George never forgave me, but Tom often asked me to excellent dinners in his charming house in Mayfair. Okay. Now Tom would actually call the writer for dinners in his house also. He's become a rich person. And he occasionally borrows a trifle from me. That is merely for force of habit. It's never more than a sovereign. But still, he doesn't forget to borrow money because that has been a habit for him for quite a long time. Okay. So you understood, Kiasa, what was the actually why the ending was so funny and different?
Yes.
Why,
Yes.
Kiasa?
Because as suggested in the fable, it showed that the ant was rewarded, whereas the grasshopper was not rewarded. But in the story, it was upside down, where
Correct.
Tom, who was lazy, he was rewarded, and George, who was like very hardworking, he was not rewarded with so much amount of money as Tom got.
But he did well for himself, right? He should not be disappointed. He has actually whatever he has planned that has come true, so he should not be so disappointed as well. But yes, Tom was actually the winner at the end of the day. But I must tell you, all the students, and I should warn you that this is a one-time story. Okay, we should not be affected by it. Do not get absolutely what is encouraged by this kind of thing. We need to work hard, okay, and set things and do things the right way. Okay, understood?
Yes.
Somebody is going to just tell me, sir, you know what happened. So this is this we should not do. Okay.